All right. Can you hear me? And can you speak?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. Let me just test something out. All right, it works. Cool. All right. Do you want to choose a topic or do you want to let chat choose it?
Up to you. I don't want to choose it really.
All right. I guess it's deferred to you chat. What should the topic be? I mean, we were talking about systemic racism. Oh, right there. I didn't even have to say it. All right. Uh, let's. Do you want to start by defining the systemic racism, or should I?
You can go ahead.
All right. Well, I wasn't really prepared for this, but I believe the systemic racism. Well, actually, I think somebody says I think this is a spicy one. So so I think they want the topic to be whether black people care about people using the N word. You want to share your thoughts on that?
Yeah, what about it?
Yeah, do you want to share your thoughts on like whether black people care about other people using the N word who aren't black?
Yeah, sure. I don't really know why, and I don't know what your experience is, but my experience is that I'm far too, involved with the black community. I know them too well. Not like I'm special for it, but like from firsthand experience, it's like I don't really encounter a reality where like using the N word isn't synonymous with like saying bro.
Oh, okay, wait, hold on. Let me redefine this. Do you when you say N word, do you mean it with a soft A or the hard R?
It's complicated. Definitely with a soft A, obviously, but even with like, hard ending, there's definitely context where that comes into factor too. Growing up, it was kind of maintained like white people could be that too. So it was almost like the racial undertone to that was kind of taken out.
So okay, so you said that there was a that the racial undertone for using a hard R has been taken out. I would wholly disagree with that because to my my position is that if a word has been used historically to discriminate against a certain group, whether it be black people, Mexicans, doesn't matter. If you're a demographic and that word has been used historically to discriminate against that group, nobody but that group should be allowed to say it. I'll give you my explanation. The reason why
That's just like social
hold
racialism. That's just
hold on.
racism.
Hold
That's
on, hold on,
appeal
hold on,
to
hold on,
tradition.
hold
That's
on.
a fallacy.
Hold on. The reason being is that if I use it, and I don't mean like nobody should be able to use that word as in like or hold on. As in like if you use that word you should be like thrown in jail or some shit, right? But if you use that word in public, right? And that word has been used to historically discriminate against somebody, even if you use it in passing conversation, the person on the other end doesn't know if you're what context that you're using it in. For them, they might be going through the grocery store and you drop a hard R, and now they might feel that they're not welcome in that establishment anymore. That's my logic behind it.
Nah, I mean, I get what you're saying, and the thing is that it'd kind of be like, something that you might clear up at some point, not so much something that you just blurt out, in a grocery store or something. But nonetheless, like if I were in a grocery store, I might say that directing it at a white person. You know what I mean?
But then what's the context of you using it towards that white person? Like why would you use it towards that white person?
Well, it's complicated, and I mean, I know that society as a whole hasn't necessarily like adopted this or anything. I think it would be better for them to. Um, But it basically means like, someone who's kind of like a beggar or, that type of attitude.
So, would you say that you're using it in a negative with a negative connotation?
Yes, but not a racial one, which is the whole difference.
I mean, but isn't that the whole issue with racism, where you attribute certain characteristics to somebody just because of their skin color or their race, and especially if you attribute that type of connotation or it's a negative one, don't you wouldn't you agree that that's a problem?
I'm sorry, I don't really understand what you're saying. The point
So
is, okay,
oh,
let's
no, no,
let's look
okay,
at
no,
the
no,
op.
no, 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 no. Hold on. You asked me. You said you don't really understand what I'm saying. I'm not gonna let. We're not gonna deflect. Let me clarify my point. Okay. So if I say that if society thinks that calling somebody a fucking can, right? Cans. If society attributes that cans are deadbeats, they're lazy, right? They don't. They don't work for a living. They're drug addicts. And then I start calling people cans as a joke or because I think it's funny or whatever the reason may be, right? Like, do you think that's okay? When we all attribute these characteristics to the word can, and then you call somebody a can, you might think that it's a joke, but inherently you're using it to attribute those characteristics that you put on the can to that person. Is that something that you agree with?
I don't really see how it relates to this topic, honestly. I don't see what you're saying. Let me try.
Or,
Like I was saying, let me explain it from the other way, not to like pivot or anything, but to
no, okay,
you'll
no,
get what
no,
I'm talking about by going at it from that angle. The alternative would be okay. So let's say some way, like a white person does use that word only around, or like it's only it's not an acceptable word, but then they use it around a black person. That's more likely in that context, as opposed to if we adopted it to be like universal, more likely in that context to sort of, get a jolt out of them. You know what I mean? It gives the
so,
word
so,
power keeping it that way. And the point is to reclaim that power away from,
so
its racist history.
yeah, but
It doesn't mute the history either.
I mean, but is it? But if you're not the one who's been on the, if you're not the one who has been who has had this word used against your community, do you think it's understandable or even justifiable for the person who had, or how do I say this, for the first for you who isn't part of that community to try to take it back as in to reclaim its power when there might be people in that community that agree with the way that you think, but how are you going to know if it's the whole community that agrees with that logic?
Well, I mean, I'm open to conversation, I guess, but to be honest, I don't really. Okay, I've come from a very weird perspective too. I don't even want to get into that, but
I mean, I can,
I
I'm an
don't even know
open
if
book
it's
with I'm a
TOS or not, but
hmm.
it's just like I don't see it that way because it's still like the greater good. The better way to go about it is still at least closer to what I'm doing than what you're proposing.
um
We can use a different example if you
can you
want,
expand on that?
because
No, 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 no. I actually I like where this is going. Can you expand on how reclaiming or you not being part of that community and reclaiming a word for them um and you reclaiming a word for them is somehow inherently better than me talking about this being an issue.
well, because you're saying, hey, let's divide how people act based on, or how what's acceptable for them based on their race. It's just a horrible precedent.
How am I redefining how people should act by acknowledging that a word shouldn't be used in general if it's not if you're not part of that
Well, at that
community.
point, I mean, the argument could be made that you're taking it away from black people too.
I said if you don't.
And okay,
I said hold on,
moreover,
hold on, hold on. I
it's
said
like
if you
you
don't
can't just
belong to
get
that
rid of
group.
the word. You know what I
Hold
mean?
on. I said hold on.
You can't get rid of the racial connotation while also saying like, oh, we just don't use that word. The word it will still carry that connotation when it is used.
Yeah, so by your own logic, if the word's going to carry the connotation regardless of what however it's used, then why is it up to you to be able to
No,
retake that
that's not what I'm
power?
saying at all.
No, but you said it earlier. You literally said earlier that by taking back that word, you take away the racial connotation to it, and you literally just conflicted with your own point and said now that you can never take away that racial connotation. You, dude, you're You're literally contradicting yourself. Like that.
No,
That
no,
get.
no, no, no.
Yeah, you did.
You're not hearing me right. You can't take away the connotation unless you change it.
Oh, now you're
You,
moving the goalpost, dude.
no, no, I was saying that all along. You just were
All right,
misinterpreting it
all right, all
or
right, all
something.
right,
But I've
all right,
always held it that way. I mean,
all right.
yeah, I mean, you're saying, okay, nobody can use the word. Well, what happens when somebody uses the word? Does it just suddenly take on a new meaning? No, but if you say, okay, let's change the meaning of this word that already exists, well, then that might stick.
Wait, you're gonna have to repeat that because that was so abstract.
The difference is like if you say, okay, we're just not going to use this word, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's not going to get rid of the connotation. It's still going to
No.
carry that connotation when it does get used. Like it becomes a stigmatized, word, a word of stigma. And of
Okay.
course, we know what the connotation would traditionally be,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to modifying the language going forward,
Okay.
wherein then you can get rid of the connotation.
Okay. So how would you go about changing that connotation in a way that you can like that has been used to other words, or is it just something that's unique to the to racial slurs?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was totally zoned out. What do you say?
Like what other words can you give me examples of that have had their connotations change just because people use them more? And not because we have had the community to have had an agreement and a consensus of what the word's going to be changed.
Say that last sentence again.
I said, how can you prove that by using that word more, you're going to change the connotation? That you're going to change the connotation of
Well,
that
it's not about
word?
using the word more. It's about adopting, a new meaning, a new context to that word.
Yeah. Okay.
This does
Okay. Okay.
happen all
Hold
the
on. Hold
time.
on. Hold on. Hold
Dictionaries,
on. Hold
I
on.
mean, not
Hold
all
on.
the time. It's very
Hold on.
slow,
Hold
but
on. Hold on. So if you're gonna adopt a new adopt that new word, the new connotation of the word, right? Oh my god. All right. If you're gonna adopt the new connotation of the word, can you give me examples of other words that this has happened with?
not off the top of my head, but I'm sure you can find them. I mean,
I mean, you're the
racism
one
just
making
got
a claim,
redefined
dude.
in the dictionary, etc.
I mean, you're the one making the claim. Like, you should. I feel like if you hold this position, you should be able to defend it. I mean, when it comes to systemic racism and why you shouldn't use the word, I can defend it. I mean,
I
like
mean, you're
if
just
you're
dismissing it because principle. You're saying, oh well, we don't know
Mhm.
that that can actually happen, or you haven't proven it to me, so therefore
Yeah,
it
that's how
must not be
science
able to
works, my
be.
dude. That's how
Sorry,
science
what did you
works.
say?
That's how science works. Unless you can prove it and
That's
say that it's
absolutely not how
repeatable.
science works. That's a fallacy.
Are you saying that science is a fallacy?
Not at all. See, now you're just, misrepresenting what I said.
I'm
You were
asking you a
saying
question. I'm
that
asking
if
you a
I can't
question.
prove it to you,
I asked you to
then it
clarify your
just
point.
can't exist. It's not a possibility. It's been
No, I'm not saying
falsified.
it. I'm not saying it can exist. I'm saying that if you're going to hold a position on something, that you should be able to prove or at least justify that position.
I mean,
You're
if you're
simply
asking
making
me
the
if
claim.
it
You're
can
simply making the
change a social
claim.
construct, the answer is, of course, yes.
Yeah. All right. If that was the case, then wouldn't the logical conclusion be that everybody in the United States should be able to say the N word?
Should or shouldn't?
Should be able to.
Should? Is that what you said? Sorry, you're
Yeah,
breaking up.
that's what. Yeah. So if you think that we should change the social connotation of the word of the N word, right? For example, wouldn't the logical conclusion to that be that everybody in the United States should be able to say the N word?
Yes, as long as it's in,
Hmm.
the context that isn't, what's the word? I don't know. I guess inappropriate. I can't think of the word.
I mean, but by your logic, if everybody's able to use a word, then it would take the power out of the word. So wouldn't it not, never be inappropriate? Can you further elaborate? I'm confused.
I don't understand your question.
So you stated that that by a lot of people using the word, that it would take the racist connotation away from the N word, right? So then,
It could be used that way.
well, could I mean, dude, like at this point, you're like moving the goalpost. Like it's like you have if you're gonna make a claim, you have to be able to
Well,
either
it's a
back it up or stick to
sociological
it.
it can go any type of way. We can start changing the way the word "the" is.
Oh
That
my
could
lord,
look at
you're straight
pronouns.
up
Look at
moving
how
the
we define
goalpost right now.
that.
You're moving the goalpost, dude.
I'm not. I'm just giving you other examples to show you what I'm trying to like explain.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so this is what you told me, that if if a lot of people use the word, you take away the power and the racist connotation from that word, right? And then I asked you, is the logical conclusion to that then being that everybody in America can use the N word? And then you made an exception, which is not if it was not if it had like a racist implication, or if it was like I forget the exact word
Okay,
that you
okay, I
said.
see what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah.
The thing is, we
So
would
if every
presumably keep the word have a derogatory meaning, but just not a racist one.
so you would keep the word to have a derogatory meaning and not a racist one. I'm actually really confused as to like how you can separate derogatory from racism. I mean, I think racist is inherently derogatory. But like if you're derogatory, it doesn't necessarily have to be racist, because you could have a derogatory term be homophobic. You can have a derogatory term be transphobic, but you can't have a homophobic term be any less derogatory.
Sure, but you can have it not be derogatory in like a homosexual sense.
So wait, what? I mean, I'm really confused. Can you further elaborate? I mean, how would you make it that a word that is in like homophobic or racist or is prejudice of a certain group be any less derogatory? How do you separate those two things?
Well, it's hard to say because apparently this is a culture shock to me. I'll tell you that. Um, because like for example, I'm a homosexual. The F word, I mean, that's universal. That's not a homophobic term. Doesn't have to take on that context. It's very much the norm here for us to just call someone who's acting some type of way, not necessarily like suspect or anything like that, but just like use it derogatorily towards anyone. Homosexuals use it towards other people. We reclaim the language, right? We took the
Hmm.
power away from homophobic context.
Okay, so if that's the case, then do you think it's a responsibility of any other group besides the one that you belong to, which is homosexual people, to take back that word, or is it, for example, me as a straight cis male, the one to tell you that, you know, if if you don't like the F slur, that you should just be okay with me reclaiming that word for you.
Well, I mean, I can see how it would be odd going into it, but I mean, one thing that we definitely accept around here, um, and now I live in Georgia, by the way, is like trying to think. Sorry, I was reading chat.
Well, I haven't even looked at chat.
They have some good points actually. Like they seem to understand where I'm coming from.
It's I'm pretty sure it's just distrofo,
Yeah.
and we all know his views already, or distrofo's views.
I mean, he's given good explanations for these questions. I will give him that. I haven't been paying attention to him the rest of the time.
Yeah, the definition of marriage has changed. I mean,
I
it's the
mean, so
connotation
one
around
thing that we
marriage.
look at, and this is why we often, the terms that we use for leftists and stuff are like, they don't get out much, social
Mhm.
justice warriors, stuff like that. It's because it's like when someone is taking offense to words or only sees it in that way, like the classical sense of it, we're like, okay, we know to avoid that person. They're clearly not very well socialized. I know it's a little bit catty, but like that, it'd be like that.
I'm sorry. Are you assuming that I'm not well socialized or something? I'm confused.
Your views definitely do not suggest. It seems like pretty myopic, to be honest. Yes.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so you're straw manning me now. All right. I can assure you that that is not the case. I partied a lot in high school, and there's a reason that I sound kind of like a Chad. Um, and if you're gonna resort to like cheap rhetorical tricks like that to like make me seem less of a person, then it kind of shows
You
how
seem to
weak
be
your
taking
argument
offense
is.
to something that I don't know why. Like I didn't know I hit something.
It's no, I'm pointing out the fact that somebody who is has a very weak rhetorical argument is gonna resort to making the other person look bad when their points are really flimsy. That was my point. If you want to take offense to that, that's up to you.
I think all of us watching it have seen that, but like, I don't know why you think that you're not projecting right now.
What do you mean projecting?
My rhetorical arguments. I mean, sorry, I made all of my points pretty fluently.
No, you didn't. The chat is literally fucking confused about you being super vague. I don't know what you're talking about.
That's that M in person, and they're the worst person in this chat. It might be beneficial for us to look through chat and sort of bridge a cultural gap.
What? Dude, you're like bouncing around all over the place. Yeah. So, all right. If you want to make it that, all right.
I was
So,
just talking about the South Park
all right,
episode,
all right. Okay. So
and it's
apparently,
like, no, I mean, that's day to
I
day here.
I watch South Park. I think South Park is fucking hilarious. I mean, they've definitely matured over the years.
This guy is clearly a bigot. Like, what is this? Is this how sheltered they are?
um, is this one of those things of like I I feel like somebody's being intolerant to my bigotry, so I'm gonna insult them? I mean, why don't you defend yourself from being a bigot?
Because what am I saying that's bigoted? Like, what?
You literally fell back on the thing that saying that you're homosexual to deflect from the point of you like being racist.
That's another example. We're talking about semantics and
God damn it! Are you fucking
power of words
stupid
or
or
whatever you want to
something?
call it. I was giving another example that does pertain to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
hold
like
on. I know a good thing that will. I'm trying to pinpoint like where the disconnect here is. I genuinely don't know. But
oh
for
I
example, if
feel like I
someone
made
were to assume that
my
I was
stance extremely
assaulted
clear.
by, I would take offense to
Excuse me.
that. If
One more time.
someone were to assume that I get offended by like the F word directed at me, I would take offense to that because that implies that I'm somehow like that sensitive that I would give a damn.
I mean, that's up to you, but that's up to you to decide for yourself whether you're sensitive or not. Like
I'd say
I
there's a personal responsibility to not be like overly sensitive because then you have on the opposite side, you have people saying, "Oh, I'm victimized because of language."
do you, is it the language that makes him a victim, or is it the history of discrimination?
It depends on what they're saying. They say words are violent half the damn time and things of that gist. That's more on the extreme, but yeah, they absolutely.
I don't believe that words are violence. I believe that words make people feel like they're less of a person, and by using
They don't
certain words, you can
force
make
you to
them
feel
feel
that way.
dehumanized.
They don't force you to feel that way. However, you take someone else's
Okay.
stimulus. That's that's on them.
Okay. You're saying so your argument
Like
is that
standards
no
should be.
hold on. All right. So your argument is that nobody forces somebody to feel any certain way. So thus, whatever reaction is elicited from what you're saying is on that person, right?
Say that again.
That because nobody forces anyone to feel a certain way when a word is used, that when you say that word, any reaction that they have is on them.
Correct.
Okay. I hold on. Let me give me a second because I know where I want to take this, but I want to choose my words very carefully. All right.
Bob Marley, that is wrong. We don't want to be the only people saying it. Like what it comes out of nowhere, y'all. These arguments I'm hearing down there.
All right. So
Like
no,
maybe this will help
hold on.
answer something. I
No,
don't
no, no, no,
know.
no. I hold on. Let me get my turn to speak. All right. So if you do an action, right, that dehumanizes somebody else, is it then on the person who feels dehumanized to take responsibility for your action?
That's a good question. I would say so. You have to understand where I do come from.
Dude,
I
just
kind of
dude, don't just answer the question. It's really simple, dude. Because
well, I'll do both. Holy shit!
it feels
Like,
like you're gonna weasel out of this one, dude. And that's what it
what do you
feels
say?
like. I said it feels like you're trying to weasel out of this one.
Okay, ask the question again because I've already forgotten it now.
Okay, I said so if you do an action that elicits a reaction from somebody, is it now and makes them feel dehumanized? Is it now is it now the responsibility of that person to, or no, hold on. Is it now up to that person to be or fuck. Okay, so if you do an action that elicits a reaction from another person that makes them feel dehumanized for no other reason, for things that they can't change about themselves, is it now up to them to take responsibility for your action?
Yes, because while I made my action, I take responsibility for that. Their reaction is
That no
their
hold,
responsibility.
the way that you're saying this is you're not taking responsibility for your action because it's up to the other person to take responsibility for your action, dude.
Well, no, because so let's talk about me taking responsibility for my actions. If I'm saying something that I don't hold or elicit or mean to have it be interpreted in say a racist context or etc., then why would I act like, oh, you took that as racist, so it's my fault that I'm racist because you said so?
Well, the thing is it isn't your intention that makes it isn't your it isn't your hold on, is it this? Can you repeat that point?
What was it again?
Doesn't though.
So I was it
So I said
I take responsibility for
yeah.
what I say, but I also take responsibility for what I mean. And if somebody thinks I mean something else, that's not on me. That's on them for misinterpreting me.
But okay, so if that's the case, then doesn't that mean that like that um that well, wouldn't that the only way that that would work is if you think that language is so fluid that you could not only change the definitions of that language, but also change it situationally to what you want it to mean,
Well, it's also not
and not on the
situationally. I mean,
hold on, and
it
not
can
on
be
the
done in
agreed
many
upon
ways.
definition by most of society, because when somebody says the N word, they don't like, especially with a hard R, you know, I can guarantee you that like a pretty big fucking amount of people aren't going to be like, hey, that guy probably isn't racist.
I mean, it is true that like I wouldn't, just whip this word out of nowhere at like a black person or something. That's because I know that society as a whole isn't on the same page. But I do think that they are in the flaw in doing so, in being so.
So if you whip out of random the N word on a black person, they're still at fault for their reaction.
Well, I would understand why they reacted different, but I would still say like I would defend myself basically. I would be like, I didn't mean it this type of way that you're thinking. I wouldn't be as the difference being if I say something and someone's like, oh, well, you're a bigot because you said, oh, say for the F word because I'm a homosexual. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, because I could speak to that.
I I I I think I see why people think that you're a bigot, dude. I don't think you're necessarily a bad person, but I could definitely see why people think that because um, typically something that happens with bigotry is there happens to be a lot of victim blaming, right? Like so you'll do an action and then it's the other person's fault. Like you do say that you take personal responsibility for what you mean, right? But like for example, if if you get into like for example, like if you're drunk, right? And you get into a car, you accidentally kill somebody. You might have not have meant to kill somebody, but the action was still resulted in somebody's death. The action still resulted in suffering, right? So
I
you
mean, that's a totally different scenario. That's actions, not words.
well, you have to act to
So
say a
I
word, dude.
absolutely like those are. black and white indifference to me.
You have to act to say a word. You have to move your vocal cords. That's still an action.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like I'm getting behind the wheels of a car. I mean, it's not like I'm coming at you going 40. I'm not causing or endangering anyone.
I actually would disagree that you're not endangering somebody. Imagine being around a group of people who you don't know are neo Nazis, right? Like, and you start calling somebody the N word. Do you think that that wouldn't embolden them to act a certain way towards that person?
Say that again.
So let's say, right, you're around a group of neo Nazis that you might not know who they are, right? Let's say you're at a bar and you start calling somebody the N word. Do you think that that would embolden them to act in a meaningful way that would possibly hurt that person?
I mean, however they act would be, their choice of action. They're a neo-Nazi. If I call them that, they might see that as like being, like the worst thing ever. So then they start attacking me. But that's still on them to react that way and to hold the word to that sort of connotation.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I just want to make something clear. I don't think that anybody should be jailed or have be imprisoned for saying anything, right? I'm a very big freedom of speech proponent, but I do feel that people need to take personal accountability for what their words lead to, right? So if I'm at a bar and a black guy's drinking at the bar and I'm fucking around a bunch of people that I don't know are Nazis and I start calling him the N word, right? If I embolden them to act like that, I was the catalyst. I was the one who created the spark that made it so that those people felt like it was okay for them to do that shit. And I would have to take accountability because on my end, I wasn't morally justified to do it, and my actions led to something.
Your
So
actions didn't lead to something. I don't see the disconnect here.
my actions very much did lead to something.
Now, if you
It
say that to someone, you're not, there's no reaction that you can come to expect out of that. It's a thing of what are they going to do with that?
Sorry, repeat that.
You say you sparked something, but the thing is, I mean, it wasn't, say you're using it in the type of way that I might, as in like you hold my values on it. How would that be a spark? That's not a spark to me. That's just, you know, there's no fire involved. There's nothing going on like that. It doesn't hold that context to me. So how it,
Okay, let me see if I can rephrase this. Um, yeah, I mean, it kind of does seem like at any moment you can kind of just choose whatever word means to you in what context and what way you want it to mean to you in like that situation. And like if that was the case, then like why even have words? Why not just like communicate telepathically?
I don't even know how to respond to that. Like, what
Yeah,
does that
I
even
mean, no,
mean?
I mean like seriously, like dude, like you if it seems like you just want to be able to use whatever words you want and then which I don't have anything against, right? You could use whatever words you want. But like to then hide behind the I didn't mean it that way, right? Or that word doesn't have that meaning to me, even though that's the accepted way that everybody uses that word, right? Like when I say car, you don't think of a horse, right?
Yeah, sure. But I really don't think that, I think you'd be surprised to come around here. Like, we don't, eh, I say the N word with a hard R around black people pretty often. Of course, these are black people that I know.
Yeah, dude, my buddy was in downtown San Jose, and I mean, he learned his lesson for saying that word with a hard R because he got his ass whooped.
I'm not seeing that around here. Not,
I mean,
it comes
we're also in
down to
California where
things like
huh?
that.
Oh yeah, this is actually a solid point. So even if you say that the word doesn't mean that to you, like, what if that word means that to like literally everybody else around there? Is that like an acceptable thing to just be like, hey, well, it doesn't mean that to me?
Well, like I said, there's a moral. point to it all. Like there's a basis in that, and I do think that it'd be better if we adopted that sort of thing. So to argue to that point, it's like I would, tell them how I feel about using the word and how I didn't mean it, however they interpreted it.
I mean, but if you weren't doing anything wrong, then why do you have to explain what that meaning is to them and that you don't mean anything bad by it? Like, well, why do you have to offer an explanation for your actions if you don't mean anything for
Well,
them?
again, because it isn't socially
Did something happen to me on my end? Can you guys hear me? Oh, this. Oh, snap.
at a point where I know they're
My
not
bad.
gonna like
My bad.
freak
My
out
bad.
on me, where I can
My,
have that explanation, have that
my
talk.
bad. Hey, okay, can you go back to the part where I was like, why would you have to explain it? Because my cat fucking touched my deafen button. Sorry.
I guess it's like I wouldn't be, saying this across the bar or something out of nowhere. It'd be like maybe there's. It doesn't even have to be. I mean, I wouldn't have to have the conversation around if I just only had white friends around, right? But let's say there's a new black friend in the group. I'd get to know him a bit. We'd I basically wouldn't take the word out and say it until it's at a point where I'm not going to have him like freak out on me, and I'm going to be able to explain why I use that word the way I do.
Okay, so if so going back on your thing about like, like you not meaning it that way, like why is it that you have to test the waters with somebody to
Because I think
even mention
society
the
is what
word?
has it wrong as a whole.
Or have you ever thought that maybe everybody uses that worded that way, and to say to say that word, then that person, when he hears you say that, he doesn't think of the way that you're thinking of it. He thinks of it as the way that everybody has a consensus of the word being used.
But see, that's not true. Yeah, I've always had positive interactions with this, except for one. But I mean, that girl, I was like, I look at her now and I'm like, holy shit, she's whack.
So somebody's whack if they're not okay with you using the N word.
Socially acts and that sort of thing. It's like, oh, it confirmed my, maybe I was in the right, because the people who adopted that word's meaning around me, at least,
I'm
like took on my meaning of the word. It's all good. We have really good conversations, right? So we feel tighter. Okay, let me put this out there because I've dated like a lot of black men. I know that's not, like, oh, I know a black friend and all that stuff. I get that, but at some point, it's like I look at the people who I'm getting close with who are black, and the ones who apparently don't want anything to do with me, or like, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, do you
Better success with people who would take on the meaning that I would, you know.
have you ever thought about the possibility that if like those that group of people literally experiences this on a daily basis, that maybe it's not a fight that they feel like they want to put the energy into, because at least now they know that you're willing to use the N word, or at least use a word that's been historically used to dehumanize them, and at least they know where you stand, but maybe you're not trying to harm them. Have you ever thought of that possibility?
Um, I didn't really understand the question there.
Have you thought of the possibility that since a person, especially from Georgia, probably has to encounter racism a lot, and I mean like on a daily basis, people looking at them, people using the N words, people dehumanizing them, that maybe it's not worth the fight to try to educate you or speak to you in a way that, or yeah, to try to educate you on it, or even have an argument about it, because at least now they know where you stand, but they know that you're not using it in an aggressive way to like hurt them.
Well, again, it's not as universal as you think, and I don't think that race relations in the South are as bad as you make them out to be. I think, yeah, lots of black people are going to switch to voting Republican because they're preferring the white conservative views over on race over what the white liberals are currently presenting, or the left even. Like, it's not just the liberals. I don't mean to have that mistake. And I mean, I can speak to that. Like, it's been very hard 2020 being in an interracial relationship. It's caused strain. And it's like
I don't think it
it's like
should
that.
cause strain. I don't think it should. I can agree with you that. I think if you it maybe like your thing is black guys, like nobody should be telling you who you can and can't date. And that's and why the reason why I think that is that I don't think race should be a reason as to why you can or can't act in a certain way. And I'll agree with you on that. Race relations are really tricky, and it's hard conversations to have. And I think that that's a testament to why a lot of people, when you use who are like are systemically oppressed, if you use the N word in front of them, and even if you like beat around the bush and then make it so that like you let them know that you might use this word, but it's not in a way that's to dehumanize them. Maybe they're like, hey, you know what? This guy's not gonna hurt me. I don't want to have this conversation. I just don't want to deal with this today.
What were you saying? Like again, I don't know. At some point, that almost sounds like it's like let's just avoid the conversation because it's more convenient.
Yeah, no, do you not do you think that people who are having a convers like for example, if somebody has a conversation with you and tries to change your mind on whether it's okay to use the N word and and you have these arguments where I'm having a really hard time trying to change your mind, and if this is the experience that people have over and over again, at some point, why even try it?
I mean, I don't think that's the full truth. I don't think many people have the conversation. Certainly not to the hard R anyway. And it's important to take the other side of it too, because it's like, well, I'd have to go that way then. Which is
Mm,
like, okay, you know, to put myself in the feet of a black person. Not that I know that whole thing, but
I don't know
just the
either.
basics. No. But listen to this example though, and this context. It's like they tend to anyway, hold the value. It's like if I don't address the conversation, then they'll never really know. Maybe I say that around the other white people, but just not around them. You know, it's like a shadow thing at that point.
I mean the thing with I think the point that you're not like that you're missing is that you wouldn't have to do that if you just didn't say it or if you didn't hold those views. I mean that's a whole
Well,
nother
then
possibility where
there
you
is
don't even need to have
conversation
a
that people are
conversation.
and it's gonna hold the same power.
But
And the point is to take power out of you
uh,
know
but
those
is it
things.
really up to you to be the one to say that that we need to take the power out of it for you? Like at that point you're treating us whole group of people.
I don't think it's for me at all. I think it's for
Hmm.
everyone.
I I I
I think it's a positive racial precedent. Because I mean, think about oh, I lost my train of thought. It's like say everyone says a word that used to have a connotation. Now let's say you want to keep that connotation, but everyone's totally the word's been said a million times. It doesn't have the same power anymore. So if you try to say by the
but
old
it's
connotation,
but it
well,
still has the same
congratulations,
connotation. Like even though you take the
really good
power
for
out
you.
of it, it still has the same connotation. I mean,
Sorry.
I said just because you've taken the power out of it doesn't mean that it still doesn't have the same connotation and that the majority of the population still views it as having that same connotation. Maybe within your in group, you've taken out the power of it. Maybe with your black friends or the black people that you've dated, right? Like, but that doesn't mean that literally everyone around you or the majority have decided that now this word doesn't have the same meaning.
I mean, again, it's just like I think as a society we should shift that way. Perhaps, and we might want to wrap up on this topic because I mean, but
I don't think we're
like
getting anywhere.
well, think about like color blindness and that whole sentiment. I think that was the worst mistake was to not go down that route socially.
Of just ignoring color or saying that I don't see color? Is that where are you advocating for
Well,
that position on like racial
it's more
topics?
nuanced than that, sure, yes. It's not just like, oh, well, hold everyone to the same standards. Oh, they're from, the black people tend to be from, lower income, impoverished communities. Hold them to the same standards as, middle class white people. No, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that like okay, so they're from poverty, areas, single motherhood areas, things like that. We don't have to even address the whole race part of it in order to get to the same conclusions, as far as the positive ones, anyway.
Oh no, I agree that to deal with like uh things of poverty, we have to address like like people the conditions that perpetuate poverty, right? But the problem is that historically and pretty recently there's been cases where laws are enacted where they almost surgically target communities of color. So to like then turn around and be like, "Hey, this was in the past. Let's move forward from here," but not address the problem and say that we're colorblind now is kind of like fucked up, dude. I mean, at least that's my opinion.
Going forward, I think that's exactly what needs to happen. We This goes back to the welfare argument that we had been talking about, before we went, to
Wait,
voice.
I've
Y-
actually hold on. I think I have a
Now you're
question before
saying,
we move on to something else. I have a question. All right. When would I want to ask you when I talk about race relations and the way of solving like how certain groups of people have been systemically oppressed in this country. Um, do you think that I want to somehow just only support that one group?
say it again.
So like when I talk about race relations and like how a certain group, black people, have been systemically oppressed in this country with laws that are explicit and laws that have been designed to lead to racist outcomes but aren't explicitly racist. Do you and when I talk about the solutions of that, do you think that those solutions are just very much unique to black people?
Okay, I see what you're saying now. Yeah, I get that. I get that, but it's like the new legal precedents. They've kind of largely undone that, and not like fully. But the thing is, going forward, the proposals I see that are like, hey, affirmative action. I'm like, you're just promoting the same, behaviors that have disparaged this community, the same type of policies, the
Yeah.
socialized stuff, right?
Okay.
I
Okay.
mean, think
Uh,
about coronavirus relief. I don't know about you, but I know a whole lot of people who got their $1,000 check, and the first thing they did was bought drugs.
okay. What what is it that makes people have better life decisions and not buy drugs? What
Earning the
what
money their own way.
what enables
Look
people
at
to
the
have
home
better life
ownership
decisions?
in Black America. You don't own a Section 8 house,
Whoa, okay,
right?
okay, dude. Dude, if you want to talk about home ownership, we're gonna have to go down a rabbit hole of redlining, the FHA, how African American people went to World War II, with the promise of them being able to get a home, and then the U.S. government turning around and being like, actually, even though you risked your life, we're not gonna cut you that deal. You're gonna stay in the inner city, and we're only gonna give it to white people, and we're gonna encourage white flight out of the inner city and take all the capital away and leave you in there if you want to go down the
Sure.
homeownership route because I can provide you a lot of stuff on that. There's plenty of examples in LA, Oakland, a lot of people going to to go get jobs for military industry during World War II during World War II going to Oakland and then white flight happening. This is historically documented. So going and saying that the reason that African American people, or even going down that route, that African American people, if they had more home ownership, as if like that's a consequence of bad life decisions, is not a route you want to go down, dude.
No, I'm not saying it's the consequence of that. I'm saying it's a consequence of over subsidization, over reliance on the government. Like it robs them of economic opportunity.
We literally
Let's
pulled
say
up an
someone wants to
article
get
earlier
involved.
that says
No,
otherwise.
it really doesn't. I don't know why you hold that argument. I mean, y'all gave us, one sociological like explanation that was kind of like, oh well, different things are happening over there in Sweden or whatever. But it's just like, if say I'm making $0, and say
Wait a
someone else
second. Hold on.
would say that.
Before you get into an anecdotal example, all right. So you literally just said that that it's just one, and then you emphasize the sociological part of it, right? I actually have a question for you. Do you think sociology isn't a science?
It is, but it's very interpretive, and there's lots of errors in it.
So how do you get around the errors? Do you understand confidence intervals in statistics, which is a mathematical thing?
No, I don't.
So if 95% of studies point in the same direction, you can have a pretty high confidence, almost perfect, because in science you don't say 100% sure. But if
Okay,
you have
well,
a
I have a
95% confidence
think
interval, hmm?
think about gender studies and stuff. Studying, researching that on my own was what led me to voting for Trump the first time, because the
Well,
consensus is not right at all. I mean, it's disprovable. It's literally there's so much suppressed, peer-reviewed research out there
yeah,
that
I
just
mean that was a
validate
fat pivot,
proves
my
their
dude.
consensus.
That was a fat pivot, my dude. All right, let's go back to
I'm
the
not
systemic
pivoting at all.
racism.
I don't know. Y'all lie.
No, that was a fat pivot, but let's
You'll
go
be
back
like,
to
oh,
systemic racism.
LGBT perfect or something. It's consensus. It must be perfect. And then it's like, okay, well,
No, it's
burn this
something that's
bridge, and then tell me about
it's something that's improved upon, and like we this is what we have so far. And the argument I feel like you're making is that well, it's not perfect. Let's just go back to what it was.
it. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. At some point, it's like that's like what you're saying. You're saying, hey, yeah, the races are different. Y'all get that area, and we're gonna flee to the suburbs. By the way,
Wait, hold
like
on. When did I say anything about black separatism and fucking having separate but equal? What are you talking about? I never made that claim. What I made, I made the
guys,
claim. Huh?
it's
So
the same issue.
wait, hold on. Repeat that. I didn't hear you.
The whole affirmative action thing. It's like, okay, well, we have to talk about black people separately. They're gonna have separate policies. Do you see where this is going?
That's not what affirmative action is, dude.
It absolutely is. It's carrying people to different values under law by on the basis of their race or their qualities.
Wait, do you somehow think that do you somehow think that values are inherently like tied to laws, or
Not
do you,
inherently. I mean,
or is it that
values
law, or is it that
actual moral values, like a society's values.
or is it that a moral that our moral values are then used to write laws that uphold those values?
Say that one again.
Do you think that it's the laws that create the values, or is it the our moral values that create that then we write laws to reinforce them?
It's both.
Oh.
It's definitely at first, it's coming from where society is writing it, right? But how that gets interpreted by future generations, how the culture carries that out, that it alters that, right?
Can you provide me an example? Because when I think of that, I think about like the how the founding fathers' principles of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and I think those are universal values that come from the Enlightenment era.
Well, sure, but at the same time, their views of what constituted life, liberty, they certainly left black people out of that one.
Yeah, they did. And don't you think it's our responsibility to make sure that African American people have that same opportunity?
I mean, what do you mean? We kind of
Don't
switched topics here, it sounds.
No, no. Don't you think that it's our responsibility to live up to those values that were
Yeah,
the founding principles of this country?
well,
That they might have not
yeah,
thought that racism was something that was okay, but as we've matured as a society, gotten more educated, you know, maybe we realized that we weren't living up to them. And don't you think it's our responsibility as Americans to live up to those values and make sure that African Americans have those same opportunities?
absolutely. That I mean, the thing is, our approach to what policies bring that about. That's where our difference is.
You don't even know what policies I'm advocating for. You never asked me, dude.
Well, they're not going to be the right wing ones, are they?
Oh
They're
hell
not going to
no,
be the Thomas Smith, like backed ones, obviously,
no, no.
which is what I go with.
Yeah, the Thomas Sowell ones is let's let the economy and free markets pretty much perpetuate inequality and let them solve it when even fucking I think it was, who was it? I think it was MLK said
No,
it.
no, it allows them to build generational wealth
Yeah, how do you build generational wealth?
by having surplus value and having that compounding over years and years.
Yeah, yeah, but
For example,
what, hold on, but what things do you need? Like what material things do you need to build intergenerational wealth?
a source of income mostly. I mean, I don't know how you want me to answer that.
I'll give it to you. It's property, having property.
Yes.
Property never devalues. With inflation, it always goes up. And one thing, one of the big things that was never allotted to black people, and even after it was made legal, there was still redlining practices happening. And it still carries on to this day because of racial bias, that black people have less opportunity to buy property. We even
Yes,
saw
but
it,
I mean,
saw it in a video earlier.
you know,
We hold on. We even saw it in a video earlier where slaves were promised a plot of land and a mule, and the next administration after they were promised said, "Fuck that. We're gonna give money. We're gonna give state welfare to fucking white people." Why? Because we took their property, aka the slaves. So that right there is a form of affirmative action. It's been happening since our country's foundation. The affirmative action isn't something new. The affirmative action, the way that you
right,
think about it, is 100% new. The
right,
loss,
but still, I mean, I don't know. I don't see a point that you're making in that. That like,
the point that
I
I'm
mean, whether
making, the point that
my
I'm
points
making,
the best, like I get it, but like what I'm hearing from you is not. I'm still like, okay, that doesn't, explain how I'm wrong or like why the narrative that I would,
because
adopt.
the point that you're making is, hey, I know this happened in the past, but also I don't think it's right. But let's just, not do anything about it, but make things equal. That's the point that you're making, and let the free
No,
market, yeah, and let the free
not what I
market
mean.
decide it, right?
Sure,
Yeah,
but don't
then
put
let
those
the
words
free.
in my mouth
I'm trying to characterize your argument. Hmm.
because you're saying, oh, well, it's bad, so let's just keep it bad. The way I view the current
I
way
didn't say
with
that. I
going back,
said keep things the way that they are and let the free market decide, right?
Margaret decide what?
And let the free
Sorry.
market decide, and let black people participate in the free market, right?
Yeah,
And then
and so they can build. You know, I mean, how are you going to fund a school if everyone's on welfare? Where's the tax coming from?
what am I? What? You're strawmanning me, dude. Do you actually
No,
want to hear? Do you want to hear my points as to how I think
we're like
we should
talking.
do reparations? Because I've thought about this argument quite a bit. I don't even think you've ever heard of him. You just think you're arguing against something that I probably don't even hold.
But yeah, you're doing the same. We need to like take steps back or something. We're not understanding each other.
I feel like I am, but okay, I'll give you another chance to explain it. So what do you think the solution to
And yeah,
intergenerational poverty is?
sorry, what?
I said, what do you think the solution to who? What do you think is the solution to intergenerational poverty
I
that has
mean,
been
no, an issue with like, hey, yeah, I'm not going to take this raise actually because then I'll be off benefits. Or I just had this kid just to get a house. Oh, I'm not, I had a baby out of wedlock, and now I get priority Section 8 housing. Like it doesn't exactly say, hey, yeah, my family's going to be great in 10 years. Like my kids are going to have the best opportunities. But don't know where dad is.
all right. So what do you think the solution is?
I mean, I certainly don't know every nuance to it. I'm not like an economist, etc. But it's like I certainly find it an issue with the way. So, for example,
Mm,
I wouldn't do like felonies. They should be able to get housing. We should incentivize married parents getting Section 8 over single mothers.
uh, all right. Don't you think that that would hurt people who are in need? Like,
No, hold on. I think I have a good one for this. Is because
so you're
single motherhood has gone up exponentially in the Black communities since welfare.
yeah, like why do you want to incentivize people getting married that don't love each other? Isn't like the whole point of like people getting married is because they love each other. Hold on. And because they live in a household that is somewhat happy. I'm not going to say there's perfect marriages. They are willing to spend the time and raise that child in a way that they think is going to be positive, right? But if you incentivize people to get married who don't love each other and don't like each other, don't you think that's going to cause more harm to the child because of all the fighting? between the two? Because living in a cramped space with somebody you don't give a shit about, it causes a lot of fucking problems.
Well, the take is that nothing is provided to you, but like there's welfare nets. Sure, yes, of course, but it's like it's to incentivize not having a kid recklessly.
But that also doesn't solve all the people who've already had children.
Well,
It's
it only is an incentive. It's not like, hey, you made it or you didn't.
yeah, it's I think the way that you're describing it is like, hey, you already had a kid. We're gonna change the laws, and well, sucks to suck that you already made this decision. Um, like we're just gonna leave you out to dry.
Well, no, I mean, are they going to do much better without you or with the way that it's going? Obviously not, right?
I mean, I have no idea.
It's
I
harder to pull back. Yes,
hmm?
that's the issue. That's why we get mad about it because it's like we've had this talk for decades.
If so there's so there is a history behind blaming the poor for being poor, and it goes back to the foundation of this country. I can provide you some readings if you're willing to listen, but he is a sociologist and he's German. But Max Weber did some really good writings on the Protestant ethic, right? Uh, through this country's foundation, we've the Protestants thought, which were the original pilgrims, right, that that if you work hard, God will bless you, and He will bless you with benefits, aka money, right? So we can see that throughout our culture, like 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 somebody talks about how they have money. Oh, it's like, oh, I'm blessed, right? Like that, then in turn gives a justification for people to be like, hey, that person doesn't have money. They must be a sinner. They must be doing things badly. It's another way of perpetuating the idea that people are poor because of their life decisions and never acknowledging that there's systematic things keeping people down. That poverty is a cycle because it keeps you there.
I mean, I understand that, but I don't. That's not like the value that I'm still sharing. I don't see that at all. And I don't think that's what's being. I mean, sure, by some people, yes. We need to recognize that there's racism across the board on the political spectrum, but it's how it manifests, obviously. And like I don't know. I'm not sharing that sentiment because like I, on one hand, it's like I look at it as like, okay, if you don't have generational wealth, well, then you're definitely going to have to cohabitate to like make up for that.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. It's complicated because it's like we have a situation that we didn't have years ago. I mean,
Dude,
it's
this
not to say
it,
that everything in the
oh,
60s was wrong. I certainly
dude, no,
agree that
no.
the
I
civil
mean,
rights and
we had
the,
strong unions. I'll tell you that much.
sorry, what was that?
I said we had strong unions in the '60s. That was good.
I still didn't hear you. Sorry.
I said we had strong unions in the '60s. That was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean things have changed a lot. I don't know that much about unions because they're not super active in Georgia. Like we don't have
Oh
teachers
no.
unions, that sort of thing.
Oh, I'll tell you
But
this
I'm
much.
uh,
Union busting is really strong within the Republican Party, and it's been strong. I think Reagan was what had was one of the strongest union busters, at least his administration. They did a lot of it during the Red Scare. I don't know if you're familiar with that part of history, but pretty much it was during the Cold War with the Soviets, and literally anybody who even had a lick of communist or Marxist ideology was then deemed to be in cahoots or in bed with the USSR. So literally every single fucking ounce of class consciousness was squeezed out of the American people, and union busters went in to destroy unions because they were afraid that we would get the USSR. But here in the United States, but the USSR was authoritarian dictatorship who had an economic organization of communism. We didn't have that here. We had something closer to a democratic socialism. We had strong unions, a democracy. That's democratic socialism, my dude.
yeah, I mean I don't know that it's all changed that much. I mean, look at how
We
different
we only
things
have
are by state and that. There's still
only
lots of
12%
control
of
within
the only
Congress
12% of the
about
workforce
that.
is unionized. All right.
Sorry, you cut out.
I said only 12% of the workforce is unionized now. And there's a reason for that. There's laws that prevent unions from fucking from happening. Like Walmart literally gets charged, I think it's like 200 or $2,500 for every time that they fire somebody because of unionization efforts. I think there was a report right now that Amazon came out with or somebody not Amazon, but somebody leaked that Amazon is literally having people like union busters come in anytime they even have a whiff of unionization efforts. And there's a reason for that. And it's to keep the wages low. Because every time that a company that people get unionized, the wages go up. And if the wages
Well,
go
it
up,
depends.
gives
It
people
depends on
more
the laws.
economic mobility.
We don't get as much union activity because we have the right to work laws. So if union wages go up, then it goes up for all the other non-unionized workers.
Well, where did we get those laws? Those those laws like that stopped child labor, that stopped
I mean, I think that's a positive.
yeah. Where did
The
they
right
come
to
from?
work.
The 5 day week, benefits. Where did those things come from? Because they didn't just
Unions, but I
happen.
mean, at
Yeah,
some point, it exhausts a lot of things, and now it's like I don't know if we need. There's problems with unions. You have to look at how it affects the industry.
yeah. What's the alternative?
If everyone's
The
now, then that
alter
means I'm gonna have to cut my lowest line.
Yeah, and the alternative is what? The we have a fucking Walmart workforce that gets paid 7.25 an hour, and then when as everybody's fucking being economically strained, then we have an administration who comes in and starts pointing the fingers at different races and being like they're the problem.
I haven't seen it to be like that. It's more about getting crime out of areas.
Wait, what? What does crime have to do with? I'm sorry, we were talking about unions.
Yeah, let's stick to unions or
Yeah, yeah. Or
whatever. But
the reason that I was going on this tangent is pretty much to talk about how literally wages are extremely low in this country, right? We can admit that going to fucking working at Walmart is fucking ass. You make $7.25 an hour federally. I think that's the minimum wage. It hasn't gone up in the past 20 years. But then to
I mean,
turn,
you see, a big part of the argument, and you don't want to dismiss this because y'all make the error of doing it. A lot of the issues that y'all say, I'm like, okay, it's that bad. Well, it's not that bad here in Republican areas. Like for example, if I go work at Walmart, I'm not getting paid minimum wage. They're going to start me at like 13 an hour, and it's 7.45 here, the minimum wage. In fact, I think they moved up from that recently in early 2020. It's things like that. I can afford rent on minimum wage if I wanted to.
yeah.
In the
Also,
case of
did,
years.
did you know that oh, hold on, sorry. Did you know that if wages went up with productivity, that you'd be at $22 an hour right now?
I understand that issue, but I think it's more complex than that too.
I mean, the complexity behind it is that I mean, the argument for Walmart paying people low wages is that the purchasing power of the dollar is higher, right? So like since because we're manufacturing in China, people's dollar goes the same way.
Well, right, and because people were talking about it earlier in chat, I want to tie that to like that's what trickle down economics is. I mean, I'm not, we're not still buying cars from the 80s like that's our only option. We have access to newer ones.
But that has to do with innovation. That has nothing to do with trickle down economics. Innovation
Does
is like
trickle
literally a part of
down
capitalism. What do you
down
mean?
economics isn't just like, oh, the money will reach you. It's also like,
Well, we had innovation
you
before trickle down economics, so to attribute it to trickle down economics is just factually untrue. Innovation
sorry, I
is
had to drop some.
I said to attribute innovation to trickle down economics is just factually untrue. We had innovation before. That's the whole point. That's what happened during the industrialization era. We didn't have trickle down economics at that point, and we still became industrialized. We still innovated. So to attribute it that's trickle down economics shows a lack of understanding of what trickle down economics means.
I mean, it's not like trickle down economics only exists in like a perfectly free market or whatever. We obviously don't live in that now. Um, but it's not just like, oh, the money will reach you eventually. It's also like, oh, you're gonna have, it all ties into capitalism and surplus value, innovation, research and development. I mean, have fun doing that in a communist country or whatever
Do
without
you,
like making
wait,
ends meet, right? The
actually,
lowest line is.
can you define what communism, or all right, maybe not communism. Can you define what socialism is? or a perfect
when
socialist
the
country.
government does. No, but it's. I mean, it's basically when the unions take over. It would kind of look like that.
It would be the democratic organization of the workplace, yes, but we don't have a socialist country on this planet right now. We have co-ops.
See, okay, argument, and it goes for communism too. You always say it wasn't communism, and I agree. Um, but the thing is, it's like, okay, how did they go about attempting to do it? All this Marxist tactics. So why are you trying the Marxist tactics again and thinking it's going to result
Wait,
in something
what?
different?
What? It wasn't a Marxist tactic. It was Vladimir Lenin's, um, like ideas based on Marx. I haven't read Vladimir Lenin. I don't agree with the fucking revolution in this country because a revolution is just gonna be either end in fascism or it's gonna end in a fucking a communist dictatorship, which is neither of those things I want. And like,
Well, it's not going to be real communism. Of course, it'd just be state capitalism, like what they got going on in China.
yeah, yeah, I don't want that shit. But I definitely do like.
Exactly.
But
I'm
hold
not
on.
voting left now.
But I definitely do like, I think socialism ideally is what something we should strive for. So if we can get closer to it in a way that's been modeled and tested and fucking works, which is a free market with high emphasis on social safety nets, which is what we see along all these other Nordic countries. And if we were to then, you know, provide people with health care, provide people with free education, and all these other barriers to getting to the middle class, right? That are universal programs that aren't unique to one
You're cutting
specific.
out at all, actually.
So that are like free healthcare, free education, all these barriers that are put in place, they're just inherent. They're just barriers to getting into the middle class. I'm not going to say put in place, right? Uh, but they're inherent and they're barriers to getting into the middle class, and they're the ones that if you don't have, you remain poor, right, and perpetuate poverty. And these programs are universal. They're not unique to one race, so you wouldn't even need affirmative action. But it would basically be a form of reparations that literally everybody benefits from, and it's that the egalitarianism and the equal opportunity to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. That's what I want, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people from minority communities that would agree with me. But then to say that, hey, capitalism is going to be the best thing, and if we just leave it over generations, these people who don't have any way of building intergenerational wealth are just going to fix themselves, is I think it's pretty misleading, dude. Hello.
Okay, okay, you're not gonna like this, but yeah, my volume just shifted down for all of that.
Oh, God. Where's the last thing you heard? What was the last thing you heard? Hello.
I literally heard none of it. It's quieter now too. I don't know why. Some bullshit, but
is am I is everybody can everybody hear me? All right. I mean, I think I'm pretty much done with this debate. I think this is as far as we can go.
yeah, I mean, I can hear you now, but
Yeah, I think I'm done for today, at least debating wise. All right, is there anything you want to say to the chat that isn't a bunch of M bombs so that I meet you? And I'm not saying that that's what you're gonna do, but I'm just prepping. Oh, okay, I'll take that as a no. All right, have a.
I would be down to talk again sometime or even continue now.
Mm,
Although
I'm kind of done for today. I've been streaming since like 12 o'clock and dealing with people who are way like Like I might think that that like you might be a little bit bigoted, but I don't think you're a lost cause. But I've dealt with some people that I'm like, yo, like this person is a lost cause, and I think my mental capacity is kind of draining right now. All right, maybe it's your Discord that's messing up, but yeah, I'd be down to have another conversation like this. All right, well,
All I'm gonna say, like, you gotta see where I'm coming from, because it's like I hear about these people from like Oregon and shit, and they have all this crazy stuff going on, but they have like only like 1 in 50 people in Oregon are black. It's like they barely know them.
yeah, but do you know why
Whereas
that is?
people are black, and
You
I've
know,
had a
dude,
multiple relation. I'm a sex worker. I'm a gay sex worker. I'm out here licking black men's assholes, and it's like
it,
y'all are
dude.
out here being like, "Oh, this is a white cis." You see why that doesn't click, right?
No, no, I totally understand that, and I mean, like the thing but there also like there's been laws in Oregon that like I think it was like up until 2004 there was literally laws still on the books even though they were amended that said if an African American person stayed in Oregon for more than 3 years they had to go to the town square and get whipped. So like there's reasons why there's not a lot of black people there. And I think the reason why Antifa is so like strong there is because there's literal KKK in Oregon and they're fucking strong. Like so when and Antifa has to go up against that and the KKK has been known to infiltrate police departments. Like there's a reason why they fucking fight back because they're not just fighting the state, they're fighting those right-wing militias which are now deemed terrorist groups. So I mean, like these topics are really hard to digest, and on face value, like when you hear somebody talk about like free market capitalism, like solving
I'm not
everything.
really sure if that's like on one end, it's like I see like white panic in Oregon and stuff on the left mostly, and like
I mean, I think you're breaking up, dude. Yeah, I feel like I'm not gonna get like the full context of what you're trying to say, and I don't really want to rob you from that. So maybe on another day when
like
you figure out like your mic
a black
situation.
new invention to them or something like with some alien.
Yeah, dude, like I said, you're breaking up like really heavy, and I don't want to take out the essence of like what your statements are. So I'd much rather have another conversation on a different day where like your mic isn't cutting in and out, because I don't want to rob you of like what you're actually trying to say. That's the last thing I want to do. All right, all right. So what'd y'all think of that? I probably missed everything in chat, so if there's anything you particularly want me to read, just like retype it out or something. I mean, the last thing I want to do is push people farther to the right. Like, that's not what I'm here for. I don't want to do that shit. Because the more that I tell somebody that they're less of a human for like having a certain view, then the more they're gonna be pushed towards like people that are fucking grifters. And I'm just gonna reaffirm the idea that somebody who's a leftist is somehow like irrational and doesn't think and just argues from emotion. And I don't want to be that person. Although I definitely was that person at one point, but people grow, people change. I think that that when you've grown up your whole life and literally every single piece of literature and Americana like worships capitalism, and I don't think capitalism is inherently a bad thing. I think it has problems that we need to solve. And to just sit back and be like, hey, these problems exist and we know that it perpetuates inequality, but like, let's fix them. I mean, let's just let the course play out when literally historically African Americans have been barred from reaping that opportunity. And I'm not going to say that like, every fucking white person is economically privileged or some shit, but like, goddamn, dude, the statistics fucking yeah, do a pretty fucking good job of building a picture that's hard to look away from. I wasn't paying attention. Too busy debating chat. Exactly. You're moving in a better direction. At least that's what I'm trying to do. You're not debating if you don't provide any actual evidence for claims when giving them. That's somebody else. Uh, a grifter is somebody who like intentionally lies to you and misleads you on purpose. So like when we were watching Candace Owens earlier, who like will deliberately misinform you to get you to like think in a way that she wants you to, that's a grifter. Steven Crowder's a grifter. Candace Owens is a grifter. Like they'll say super out of pocket shit and then like be like, haha, just kidding. Or they'll like mislead you. Like for example, like the Breonna Taylor thing, right? They'll like say that they'll like lie to you about like the police knocking when it was a no knock warrant, right? And fucking 12 of the 13 witnesses and the neighbors said that they didn't hear a knock or the police announced themselves, right? So they'll deliberately lie to you so that way you're like, as a fucking person who was like, oh yeah, pro Second Amendment, you're like, damn, it was his fault for shooting at the cops, right? Like it's shit like that. I mean, dude, I don't think he's a bad person. I really don't. I think we disagree on a lot of things, and hopefully, maybe throughout having conversations, I could change his mind. What do you mean they're still being robbed of certain things? Oh, you're talking about yeah, African American people. Yeah, no, you're right. I mischaracterized that. No, no, dude. I'm like that's the thing. I think when you're arguing from a place of of like when you have had your views reaffirmed literally everywhere you go, and somebody tells you that all those views are wrong, like that's a fucking hard pill to swallow, dude.